We have been outflanked by FFG with these new cards. Welcome to the podcast where we discuss how to outmaneuver your opponents. I'm Faith, and I'm here again with Jrod and his Dudeness. We now know all the cards that will be in the starter set for Shadows of the Galaxy, and some background information on the choices they made in the product. Let's start off today, though, by discussing how our events went this past week. Dudeness?
Well, Faith, you should start because your event was a banger, right?
My event that I was so excited for, my first store showdown, didn't happen. And I'm pretty disappointed. I called my local game store up the day before, just making sure I had the right time. I knew where I was going. And they said, yeah, come on down, play. And I get there. I plan my entire day around this store showdown because I wanted to go and play this new game that I've been playing at the highest level that's been available, basically. And they say, sorry, we're not going to have it. We have another store that's going to be hosting their version the next day, which was Mother's Day, and that all the promos were going to that. And that was pretty disappointing because, yeah, my whole day I had planned around playing this event, and it really just ruined my day, to be honest.
Yeah, that's very, very unfortunate. Thankfully, my event was more or less the exact opposite. And a big shout out to Geek Out and Burleson, Justin, Jim, all the rest of the garbage rollers for hosting it. It ran pretty smoothly. It was the biggest event I've ever been to personally. 72 players, 7 rounds of Swiss, top 8. The deck I was using was more or less the same deck from the previous week that I played at the store showdown for May the 4th, with a few differences. I went up to 3 copies of R2-D2 because that little dude is an MVP all-star, and he actually won me. It was pretty critical in a top 8 match to win me that match too. So 3 of those guys are easy from here on out. I don't see me playing less than 3. Also trying out a newer build with 3 Ewing reinforcements, 3 attack pods, 2 Dodanas, and 2 Wedge. The Wedge didn't end up being too relevant on the day, but there were a few games where Dodana actually carried his weight pretty well, and I'd see me running 2 of him from here on out too. But as far as the matches itself, first round I'm up against a Yellow Sabine player, and he had even said that he usually plays Leia, but then at the last minute decided to switch to the Yellow Sabine, and I ended up winning 2-0. The first match I had to claim though, and hope to top deck either Rebel Assault or Fleet Lieutenant. I find the Rebel Assault, I win game 1. Game 2, he plays a turn 1 play, Spec Force, and then he ends up buffing that next turn with a Wing Leader. I counter by playing an Akbar and finish it off with the Tarkin Town, and that was really, couldn't come back from that. GG, easy 2-0. The second round, I played against a local named Steven, a very cool guy, love the dude, but I had to crush his yellow Boba deck 2-0. The big story there, I think he only cast Cunnied once in both games, so I didn't really have to deal with much there. We're just able to overwhelm him. You know, most of these games were over, most of these matches were over in like 20, 25 minutes too, right? So that was on to the next round. Next round was round 3. I was playing Boba Green, but this was the same opponent that had played in the first round the previous week at the store showdown, and he was on Vader Green that round. But this time he was on Boba Green, but the plan against Boba is space and pray. I remember one game I played all 3 of my Alliance X-Wings, which was enough to fight through. He even ambushed out a 7th Fleet Defender, but I was able to just grind through it and deal enough damage. You know, space and pray, that's all you can do. Another 2-0 round, and then round 4, I played against Ryan, who ended up finishing the tournament in 4th. He was playing Vader Green, and first round I don't remember much, but the second game, the first game don't remember much. The second game was the actual first game loss on the day. He was able to play 2 Death Star stormtroopers on the ground, and I didn't really deal with them, and he just, all of a sudden I was like, oh wait, you're just going to swing for lethal. Okay, cool. But game 3, I was able to overcome it, finish it off with Ewing reinforcement. You know, on the round 5, I was 4-0. I was pretty stoked, right? I didn't expect to be doing that well, but there it was. I was kind of crushing it. Game 5, actually, of the Swiss, as you can see that on the Garbage Rollers YouTube channel. It was just posted today, actually. I watched it earlier. That was against Vader Blue. His list was a little different than the one that won the 5K. He was using more unit focus because both games I went space and he played a TIE fighter in space and then pinged it with the Vader. And so he's able to trade there, but I'm still able to attack first and get the damage in. And then each game I was able to follow that up with a red 3. And game 1, he ended up bombing running my entire space. I had like a red 3, a wing, and maybe something else. And I countered by playing Dodana on the ground and swinging with Leia, and I was able to finish him off on the ground there. And game 2, this is probably like the best game for Dodana, was in round 2 after I play my red 3, he plays Inferno 4, pings off my red 3, I claim, and then my first action is to play Dodana to get him out of range of the Inferno 4 swinging. And so he's like, oh man, what do I do here? He ends up playing a TIE fighter to ping it again eventually, right? So then I swing, get the damage in, he trades off into the Inferno 4, and then before he can ping it off, I play a Metal Ceremony to get it out of damage of the ping, and he can't do anything on that round. He spent a lot of effort to try to kill my red 3 and ends up being buffed. And next turn, I swing first, and I'm with Leia, Dodana, and the red 3 with experience was 10 damage, just straight up. So that was kind of backbreaking there. And he wasn't able to come back from that. So that was pretty cool at this point. 5-0. Pretty hyped, right? And then round 6 is when I meet Justin, aka Inception, playing Boba Green. And this will be on their YouTube channel tomorrow, presumably, but they haven't posted it yet, so I haven't been able to go back and watch it. But they were both pretty close games. Game 1 was weird. So like obviously it's Space and Pray, right? It's always Space and Pray. I put space units to just hope. He gets up putting out like a super laser tech. And then I'm in a spot on round 3 where I have a couple units in space that I've attacked with. I put a Metal Ceremony on, but I still have 4 resources up and nothing but ground units. And he has a bunch of ground stuff with a super laser technician. And so I'm like, I can't just play a ground unit. I'll let him trade off the super laser tech to deploy Boba this turn. Like that doesn't feel like a winning proposition. And so what I ended up doing was just claiming, and what I think I should have done is pass. That's something I need to learn more, is knowing the right time to pass, because he still had a bunch of attack actions too that he could have used himself. So I needed to pass, and if he ever perhaps attacks with the super laser tech, then I can play a ground unit and try to get us some extra damage. But basically, I claim real early, he waylays my buffed A-Wing, and then I end up not using any resources on the turn, and he eliminates the thing, and he barely has enough to outrace me there. And then game 2, again, exact. It was really like these margins of these games were super close. And at the very end, I have a bunch of stuff on board. He's really close to being dead. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I play 4 cause to deal damage. Then he claims, and then he's able to play cunning first action and exhaust all my stuff, bounce the thing, and I'm just dead in the water. But if I had claimed and able to get the attack off of the dudes and then play for a cause, I would have won. Because he said he went back and looked at it, and he would have been 1 damage off lethal, and he didn't draw a pump spell. So it's just another example of how critical ordering and sequencing and knowing exactly when to claim. So it's like game 1, I claimed too early, and it kind of screwed me that one round. And game 2, I didn't claim soon enough, and it screwed me. But that was my first and only round, and only loss in the Swiss was to Justin 0-2. But I'm still feeling pretty good, 5-1. Even if I lose the next round, I'm probably still going to make top 8, but definitely win, and I'm in guaranteed. And round 7 was against David, and another local who's in Garbage Rollers too. He was playing Luke Green, and the first match there, he didn't draw a turn 1 play, so he was just on the back foot. the whole time. That was, it is what it is there. And then game 2, I was able to just push enough damage through too before he could really get to the loot turn and stuff. I'm just able to get it down 2-0 there, 6-1, make top 8. Hey, that's pretty cool. I was really stoked at this point because I honestly, at the start of the day, I didn't think I'd be making top 8, but then there I was, 6-0 or 6-1. I mean, crushed it for the most part. Top 8. I played against a Red Iden player, Logan. Both of those games, U-wing reinforcement was absolutely clutch, and without a doubt, the reason why I won it. I mean, the first game was, you play a bunch of stuff. Oh, actually, the line here was turn 1, played 2-drop, he claims, first action, kill the 2-drop. But both games, I was able to play an R2 with the 2-drop. And that is so critical because it basically means that you're going to have one unit always around to buff. And that was absolutely critical in game 2 because he plays Power of the Dark Side when I play a Battlefield Marine and R2. I choose Battlefield Marine to sacrifice because I have a wing leader in my hand, and 4 + 2 is 6, and that number is greater than 5, and I'm fairly certain he had a takedown in his hand that was then just useless because R2 has 6 health, and that guy was able to get in several attacks, like at least 3 attacks in, so 9 damage because I chose to sacrifice the Battlefield Marine over the thing. But both games, it's U-wing reinforcement. He super laser blasts. I followed up with another U-wing reinforcement, and that was enough to grind it out. I go into top 4. And then the top 4 match was against Justin again, aka Inception. And both of these games were also razor thin margins. One game I get him to 24. And if I had to sequence it differently, I could have actually got him to exactly 25. But it's a situation where when I claim in my first action, I just want to get my attacks in with Rebel Assault. But if I actually play Attack Pod and then Rebel Assault, I have exactly lethal. But instead I Rebel Assault, play Attack Pod, he attacks for lethal. And so that was really unfortunate. I lose there 0-2. But overall, very happy with how it went. Did not expect to make top 4. Actually crushed it. And then I ended up getting 3rd by me and Ryan. We just had a roll off to see who got 3rd and 4th because I was kind of done playing at that point. We were both cool with it. I rolled a 14 to his 13.
Direct.
To get 3rd, but I had an absolute blast. And honestly, dude, the event screwed up my entire sleep schedule. Like I woke up early, hours before I wanted to wake up, and couldn't get back to sleep. And then I was up until I basically woke up at 6:30, and I was up at 6:30 the next, trying to go to sleep, and just it was not happening. Just going through, all the plays, the mistakes, what I could have done, all the things, just like going back in my head over and over and over. But
well,
like
congratulations on your win. Congratulations on the top 4 finish. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Big ups. He was 3rd, not top 4. He was 3rd. Got it right.
I was 3rd.
Congratulations on your top 4 finish. Any events you guys are looking forward to this week? I know for myself, I've got another store showdown, which hopefully will not be canceled. It is farther away from my house, so that's sad, but I plan on doing that. Any events for you guys this week?
I have another store showdown coming up this Saturday at noon, and then potentially another store showdown the following Saturday.
Nice.
So I'm hoping to at least hit up most of the store showdowns that are reasonably close to my place, because they're only $10 buy-in, and it's like, it's worth it.
Yeah, I don't have anything major going on near me. Just some locals on Saturday if I get out of basketball in time. Other than that, nothing major. No store showdowns, nothing. No winner boxes, no 1Ks this weekend. So we had a bunch of stuff May 4th around here. And I mean, every store did something for May 4th, but no one decided to do anything for the week after or the week after that, which is kind of weird to me. It's like I wish a couple of the stores had just I get that everyone wanted to do Star Wars Day, but guess what?
Because it's May the 4th, right?
Not everyone can do Star Wars Day because there's only so many players. So had you staggered your stuff, you would have gotten better results.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, we won't be able to use the cards that we got spoiled this week in our store showdowns or our weeklies Not yet, at least. But we did get some information on what's coming up around the corner. So, what were your guys' favorite cards that we got spoiled? Today is Wednesday, by the way, we're recording. So anything that got spoiled, the cool card that got spoiled on Thursday and Friday, unfortunately, we're not going to be talking about that.
I'm going to go first because I'm super hyped for this card. I think this card's honestly pretty insane. And I could be very wrong. It could be terrible, but I don't think I'm wrong. I think this card's going to be like one of the best cards in the set, and it's only uncommon. It's the Client. It's a 3-cost ground unit, Vigilance, Villainy, 2/5 Imperial Official, shielded, and it has an action on it that you can choose a unit, action and exhaust the Client. Choose a unit for this phase. It gains bounty, and the bounty is heal 5 damage from a base. And if you know anything about the current cards in Vigilance Villainy, you would know that a lot of them like to just remove units from the board. So this lovely gentleman putting bounties to heal your base for 5 while also then killing something is really powerful. I know some people had said like, oh, but they get to attack first. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. They're probably going to attack you anyways. So this way I get to kill their thing and heal 5. And let's say they're a 5 attack. Guess what? I just stopped you from actually attacking me because I just healed 5. You know what I mean? So it's like, and if you did 2, then I heal 3. Perfect. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't see how this card's going to be bad. I would be very shocked. There are plenty of ways, but I think this card's nuts.
I don't think this card's going to be bad. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be as good as people assume it will be, because you are basically you're paying 3 on that turn, and you're not impacting the board at all. So that means I'm going to have a chance to do whatever I want on my turn and attack with the unit I play at turn 1. And then the next turn, you're taking an action to do the thing. So again, I get to attack with whatever I want. And so this guy is continually making you take an action, and you're down 1 card for the rest of the game too. Take an action you have to have a removal spell in your hand to also take advantage of the action that you just took. Because the chances of you using the 2/5 shielded to kill off a dude over a couple turns, it feels like an absolute waste and like awful tempo. So will he be good? Yes. I don't think he's like turbo busted.
I would agree with that. I like that description. I think he's good. He's got some interesting traits. Imperial Official are both, I think, nice traits.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I agree, though. I think a bit like you have to tam in order to do something. So you'll need to be using event removal more likely than unit removal, which is less continuous. But I think it's a fair and balanced card.
Yeah, well, but he's good, and honestly, the artwork is really great on it. I love the artwork of.
The art is sweet, but I think the one play that I'm like salivating over is when my opponent gets to go like Viper Probe Droid or Ketsu or insert any 3/2 on turn 1. I just go, okay, I'm going to claim. And then I'm going to ECL in the Client and kill your 3/2, then put a shield on it. And then, hey, guess what? Now you can play your thing, and I'm just going to put a bounty on it and kill your stuff. Right? Like, so that even if I have initiative or not in the first round, doesn't matter. I don't have to play anything round 1. I can just claim and then kill your thing on, you know what I'm saying? And I get not everything is a 3/2, but that still seems to be a very popular stat line for things that want to be more aggressive. And as we saw this meta shake out where 3/2s were like standard, if you didn't have a 3/3, you had to play 3/2s because they trade with a lot more. Like 2/3s are just generally not good enough to see a ton of play unless they're like really powerful. So unless there's a ton of good 2/3s in this set that make that change to 2/3s, I think his 2/5 body is perfect for helping against some of the aggressive or mid-range decks.
That's why you just run 1/4s with Krennic. It's way better.
Way better.
True.
1/4 tribal Krennic deck is the way to go.
Oh, okay.
What other cards did we see from our spoilers? Particularly today, a lot of cards.
Okay, today specifically, that came on Wednesday on the stream. One of the cards that I like a lot that should not surprise anybody is this card called Outflank. It's a 1-cost command event that just says attack with 2 units, parentheses 1 at a time. And so this is just going to enable go-by strategies in non-rebel lists. And the fact that it's neutral means that, hey, your Moff Gideon deck might, be using this to get a couple attacks in with his smaller boys. But I'm all about action cheating, getting multiple actions for 1 action, and I think this card could potentially be a banger. Now, it's not nearly as good as Rebel Assault because +2 damage is really significant. It's the exact same effect, but you're just getting +2 damage for free, and a lot of the time you're barely finishing off your opponent. So
It is an additional aspect, though. So
it is. No, for sure.
And it restricts rebels, but it just goes to show you how push cards can be, because Rebel Assault is strictly better than Outflank,
Yeah,
right?
strictly better and everything.
Well,
but
I guess technically Outflank can do any 2 units where you have to have rebels for Rebel Assault.
Sure.
So, like, I wouldn't say strictly, but it's mostly better than Outflank because it gives you the +1/+1, which is pretty massive, as you had stated. You know, this thing only being command without hero villainies, I think pretty massive, because technically you can attack. You can bring an Outflank in your Boba Fett deck, and you can attack with, like, Boba Fett leader, or you can attack with, like, something first and then attack with Boba Fett leader and ready 2 resources because you killed something. Like, there's so many options with this card. Action cheating has always been very, very popular and very strong in these types of games where you go action for action.
Generally speaking.
Yeah. And I like that they've been very cautious with those kind of effects. I am a little concerned that now Green Hero has 2 of these, so we'll see how that pans out. I don't know if they necessarily need to, because they have Leia as well, so they have like 3 of them. They just got all of them.
So it's like if you're already using the Rebel Assault, that means you're playing Rebels, so it's like
true.
Might just be playing Leia in the first place. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm all for it. Listen, sometimes you get the control card, sometimes you get the algo card. There's a little bit of everybody. And let's Faith chime in for a sweet mid-range card.
All right, the mid-range card of choice is going to be similar to Jrod's, but I'm going to cheat because I'm not going to talk about today's card. I'm going to talk about another villain vigilance card, which is Dr. Pershing.
Pershing.
Yeah, that one. Who's also an Imperial. This guy's a 0/5. So mid-range may or may not be the right answer. But with Krennic, he does get an additional power when he's damaged. And this unit is able to tap and deal 1 damage to a friendly unit, which could be himself. And then you get to draw a card. So this card is something that's, I think, very interesting. You get to trade a little bit of your board presence, and you get to draw cards. Why I love it with Krennic, though, is you do get to empower your boys because they're going to take a damage. Whether it'll make my final list or not, I'm not sure yet. But I think it's an interesting card.
And really quickly, Pershing is a 2-cost ground unit, vigilance villainy 0/5. I don't think that was said in the beginning. He's also a red.
That's his stat line.
He is an 0/5 dude. So, honestly, I'm sitting down, I'm playing aggro, my opponent sits across from me. His first turn play is Dr. Pershing, and my first turn play is a top tier 2-drop. I'm feeling good about my chances. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I'm feeling pretty good. And honestly, today on the stream, the first match between Tyler and Danny, Tyler's on the Moff Gideon, Danny was playing the Mandalorian deck. Tyler's first turn play was a Dr. Pershing. He drew him 3 cards, but guess what? He lost that game pretty hard. So take that information, as you will, use it as you will, but just put it out there.
At minimum, this card is an excellent sideboard card in the control mirror match. Drawing cards is very important, unless it still stays with like the oops all spells control matchups, because then it might be bad, because if they're still trying to mill you, then you probably don't want to draw too many cards. I don't know, it's a weird dynamic there, right? Because you want to draw cards before they can mill you, so maybe he is good on turn 1, so you can just start drawing cards like faster before they mill you, so you can try to find the things you want to be in your hand rather than getting milled. So it's an interesting thing. I imagine he'll be pretty good in the sideboard at minimum.
Speaking of other cards with great art, because I do think the art on this card, I really like the perspective of the art on the card, where you're being operated on. But another card with great art is it's Foundling, which is a 1-cost vigilant upgrade that gives one of your units +1/+1. It's a Mandalorian traded upgrade, and the attached unit gains the Mandalorian trait. Well, I think this card is interesting. I do like the thematicness of it. I like the idea of getting able to add a trait on one of your other units. I don't know how much we're going to see it in constructed play, though I do expect to see it a decent amount in limited, especially. something like the Armorer can now give a guy who wasn't supposed to get a shield, particularly your leader.
Yeah, I think that card's decent. Not my favorite card by any means, but it'll be interesting to see. Because typically the Mandalorians have the ability themselves if they have an upgrade. So like just being a Mandalorian doesn't inherently give you a bonus for having an upgrade. So I wonder if there will be a Mandalorian that says if other Mandalorians have upgrades, do X, because then that would make this card better. Like if you had for like limited at least, I don't think this will see counterplay in the slightest, unless there's some leader that gives buffs to Mandalorians, which like Bo-Katan is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like if you have Mandalorian, it gets what I mean. Like give it a counter, kind of
like a Mandalorian warrior,
something like that, but not really. I'm talking about the leader though. Like I'm talking about like if you had a
Tarkin leader
for Mandos, yeah, like that would be a card I'd want then to put in there for some of my non-Mandos that I'm playing.
Like the Armorer as a leader, potentially.
Potentially. Do we want to mention the newest leader that was spoiled?
Absolutely. Because I honestly was going to say we're about to talk about Lando Calrissian. He has.
I think you mean Child Gambino.
He has impeccable taste, and he's a 4-cost yellow heroism boy, 2/5. His leader side says that you may take an action, tap the boy, and play a card using Smuggle, and it costs a 2 less, but you must defeat a resource you own and control. So he's letting you play cards from your resource for free, but you're then also having to defeat a resource. So you'll smuggle the card in. The top card of your deck will go into play as a resource as per smuggling, and then Lando says defeat one of those. But I think this guy is awesome. I think he's going to be great for a low to the ground aggro. You're going to just put a bunch of stuff in your resources. The one card I'm really excited. There's 2 cards actually. The DL-44 Hotshot Blaster is going to go great with this guy. Is being able to smuggle that in for 1, and now you've got a permanent +2 attack on one of your units. You could even just put it on Lando. Now he's a 4/5. It's not bad. It's okay, right?
Yeah, on Lando, I feel like you almost wish it was a +1/+1, so you can make a 3/6.
Yeah,
just so he can't get taken down. But
yeah,
I mean,
for sure. But listen, you gotta take what you can get. But most importantly, there's the other card, Millennium Falcon, 6-cost vigilant hero, 5/5, a space unit.
cunning, not vigilance.
Yeah, did I say vigilance? I meant cunning and heroism. Yeah. He's a yellow hero, and if you play it from your hand against ambush, but more specifically, it has a smuggle cost of the same cost of the card itself, but you don't get the ambush if you smuggle it. So the key thing here is that you may smuggle that in for 4 with Lando's ability. So you get a 4-cost 5/5 in space. So they can't take down everything. You know what I'm saying? They got to pick one.
True.
And this Falcon is the first card we've gotten now, which in the main deck, so not including leaders, we've got the second copy of the same unique card.
Yeah, unique unit. Yep.
Before we get too far for Lando, real quickly, I just want to say, if there ever comes a time where we start being able to play cards from our discard pile, Lando gets also like 20 times better. Because not only can he smuggle things for cheap, the cards you get rid of and go to the discard could also be cards you play. Just means you have all the toolbox in the world to kill your opponent.
If we somehow get like flashback on cards,
something like that. Yeah.
At
some point, I imagine.
I didn't even think of that. That's kind of big brain, galaxy brain, forehead kind of stuff over there.
Hey, you know what they say? Even a blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while, right? So
I like that though. I like where your head's at.
Any other cards that we see that we are worth talking about?
Honestly, yeah, but we only got so much time. I think actually the couple, we got 2 new capture cards that Legal Authority 2-cost command upgrade. It gives you O2 attached to a friendly unit, and when played, attached unit captures an enemy non-leader unit with less power than it. And it's important to note that this is any unit across arenas, so you can have your spaceship in space capturing some ground units. And I think that's where cards like this are really going to shine. When you're dodging lanes already, and you're able to just capture their stuff from the other lane, and they can't really interact with your stuff without some sort of event, I think that's going to be really good, like straight up. But it is a rare, So, but I actually think this card is worthy of the rarity, which I don't think all cards are necessarily. But the next one, this guy's common, Discerning Veteran, 5 cost, command, 3/4 bounty hunter, and when played, this unit captures an enemy non-leader ground unit. This guy's going to be busted in draft, I'm pretty sure. Being able to just come down and capture anything you want on the other side is going to be annoying AF to play against. And he's only common, so you're going to be seeing it a lot of the time.
A great counter to a Discerning Veteran, though, is another Discerning Veteran.
And that absolutely will be, it'll be the instance where you don't want to be, like you didn't want to be the second guy to play Dooku. Or, I mean, you didn't want to be the first guy to play Dooku, you want to be the second guy to play Dooku. I think that's where you're going to be at the veteran for sure. You want to be the second guy playing the veteran on your turn.
Well, yeah, because then you get your unit back, and you played a 3/4, and you get rid of their 3/4.
Yeah, that's going to be...
then they have to get rid of your 3/4 before they can get rid of the thing that they tried to capture, which is probably bigger than the 3/4. So it's like this whole, you definitely don't want to be the...
Yeah, it sounds fun, though. Capturing sounds rad. I can't wait to actually draft the set. And I just wanted to point out a card that I think is going to be at least A tier in draft, if not S tier eventually.
I've got a controversial card that I think is actually kind of interesting, and that is Moment of Glory.
I knew you were going to say that card. I knew you were going to say that
card. Okay. This is why.
The card is I'm calling right now. This card never sees play. It's actually trash. It won't even see play in limited because the damage is persistent. Combat Trick and Magic worked because damage dropped at the end of the round, so that
same with the same health. Yes,
actually save the unit. This doesn't save anything.
It's not about saving; it's about dealing damage. So it is 4 damage to hit your opponent's base. The second part of the buff isn't what I think is good about it. I think the first part of the buff is the important part of the buff.
Plus 4 attack. So it's a more expensive surprise strike.
Yes, it's a more expensive surprise strike that doesn't attack, but it's just in limited though. In limited, that 4 damage can be a lot. And when you have 6 resources, you can play 2 of them and give your guy +8/+8, which can be a lot. And if we get anything that can ready a unit, I don't know how much that would spell, but that can be pretty powerful.
I can't wait, Faith, where you try to +8/+8 your unit and someone just goes to Discerning Veteran and you just cry all the way home.
There's a lot of ways to interrupt it. You can get captured. A lot of things that can happen. I just think that there's going to be games that I'm going to lose to Moment of Glory, and it will be my opponent's Moment of Glory.
I appreciate your opinion on the card. I emphatically disagree, but that's just me.
And just a real quick shout out to another card that I think is going to be another draft staple, Mandalorian Warrior. 3 cost, a neutral unit, 3/3 Mandalorian. When played, you may give an experience token to another Mandalorian unit. This guy is essentially a 3 cost 4/4 if you have a Mandalorian on the field. And that is just going to, this card is going to do work. I'm calling it right now. This card is going to be an actual workhorse in Mandalorian decks for draft.
Probably the single reason why Django wasn't Mandalorian. Maybe.
Essentially. All right.
Cool. Well, those were some of the cards that we got spoiled today. On FFG stream, they did talk all things starter deck. So we were told that there's going to be a starter deck for set 2, and we now got all the cards from it.
Every card.
They also gave us some background information on what would be happening in this starter set and in starter sets going forward. We were told, and as a reminder, that the S symbol on certain cards is not starter, but actually special. And we were given more than the normal amount of S cards. Dudeness, you were watching the stream. What were some of the information that we were told about these starter decks?
So basically, they said on an earlier stream that there were 10 extra cards, like 10 cards in the set that kind of had an asterisk, The set was technically 10 cards larger than set 1, but, they were quote-unquote 10 extra cards. And as we found out today, they're reprints of set 1 cards. And some of those reprints are going into the starters. Like we're getting the reprinting General Otaji, the Seasoned Shore Trooper, a couple other...
Resilient,
a couple other
System
cards. Patrolcraft. These are all...
Surprise Strike.
Surprise Strike was a reprint.
It's a little different.
It's a
because
little
that's in
different.
the set, not in the starter
Yeah,
set. My
yeah.
fault.
Yeah, so like the cards in the starter sets, they have an S symbol and they will only be appearing in the starters. They were just reprints that they said was more or less for thematic purposes. They were like, well, what does the Moff Gideon deck feel like? What do we think it feels like? Well, it's going to need a bunch of cheap troopers, right? So they pulled some cheap troopers from set one, like Season Shore Trooper and stuff like that, to give him more thematic units to play. And that basically theme was first. They wanted the theme decks to feel right. That's also why aggression is not any of the bases. Like neither deck features aggression as an aspect because it just didn't feel right for those decks to have aggression. And so they said in the future, expect the same thing. They're not just going to. The first set they had all 4 aspects because it's the very first set. They want to showcase everything. But from here on out, it's mostly a theme. What they want to do for theme. So we get reprints in all future starters, presumably for theme purposes. But they also noted that we're getting reprints that might appear in the starter sets, but also in the main set. And these actually have a set number inside the set and have a rarity. I mean, they're common. They're common cards in the set, and they're reprinted specifically to facilitate needs in draft and sealed. They wanted a particular effect in draft and sealed, like Surprise Strike that Jrod mentioned earlier, but they didn't want to print essentially another version of Surprise Strike. So now Premier decks can run what's essentially 6 copies of Surprise Strike. So I think that's a huge W. They're making sure that the draft experience is good, right? Like I think that's a great thing to be prioritizing while also making sure that they don't imbalance Premier. I thought it was a huge W. I loved everything about the decisions for the reprints.
I love when draft is the gateway into constructed, and so making, I think, your draft experience, your limited experience, curated to a good time, I think is very important. And so,
yeah, 100%.
And then they also chose the 2 cards, I think, that we saw that are in set 1 that are going to be in booster packs of set 2 are Cargo Juggernaut and Surprise Strike.
Yep.
And those are both commons, and so yes, you're going to have a lot now of Surprise Strikes and Cargo Juggernauts.
But
the reality is they were commons, and they're going to be pennies anyways. So it doesn't, like, you're not hurting the value at all.
You already have a lot of commons regardless. You probably already just have a bunch of commons that aren't going to be reprinted in the next set anyway. So
it's usually like 2 boxes, and you should have a play set of every con. So yes,
I think it's 1 box. I think you have a play set of commons. Maybe it's 2. Like, because you might be just short on with one.
I think you're just one. I think you're just short. But even not, you're going to have a lot of the cards anyways. They're basically not worth anything, and so you're not hurting that. And so the fact that it makes both the thematic aspect for the starter deck and the limited experience for draft boosters is a win-win to me.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. Like they were very transparent in the reasons they were doing everything, and that's one of my favorite things about FFG, honestly, with this whole Star Wars Unlimited, is that they've been very transparent and very upfront, pretty much everything that we've asked.
I have one quick gripe about it before we move on.
Okay.
And that one quick gripe is that I wish if they reprinted a card, they changed art to fit the theme of the set. So I wish Surprise Strike had a Mandalorian theme to it, or whatever, like the yellows version, like whatever. This kind of like theme for the whole set.
Like they did with tokens.
Bounty hunters, exactly. The same kind of thing. My one small minor gripe, I guarantee you that they already had the art, and then they decided to bring it in set 2 after the art was already done and completed, and they didn't have a chance to get another art piece done for the next set. As I imagine what happened. So I understand why it didn't happen. I think
someone asked a question on the stream, and Xander asked Tyler, and he kind of did his Tyler shrug thing and was like, that could be a good idea, but I don't think this set is happening.
Yeah, because so they said that set 1 and 2 were designed at the same time, and so was the artwork, remember, from the other streams? So I imagine it was just a matter of, like, they decided to put that in late in design. They're like, oh, we don't want
yellow
2 Surprise Strike.
Yellow needed a Surprise Strike effect, so they were like, well, let's just give a Surprise Strike.
Yeah, and they didn't have time to get another art piece commissioned in time, so they just sent it out with the same art piece. I'm hoping for the future that they'll change that. I imagine they will, but that's just my one small gripe.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I'm not...
Yeah.
They also talked about the question was asked kind of how do these starter sets balance out versus starter sets from set 1? So if you have Luke and Vader decks, if you buy these decks, will these decks be overpowered compared to them? Will they be underpowered? What did you hear as the answer to that, Dudeness?
And they said that they should be roughly on even power level. And if you wanted to just play Vader versus Mando or Luke versus Moff Gideon, et cetera, those should be fine, which is pretty cool because, there could be just players that just buy starter sets each set. They've got Mando, Gideon, Vader, Luke. Next set might be Obi-Wan and Darth Maul.
Grievous. No, it's Obi-Wan and Grievous, 100%.
Obi-Wan and Grievous. Okay, well, Obi-Wan and Vader, right?
Yeah. Although
or
Qui-Gon and not like Qui-Gon and Maul. That I would be down for that because everyone always does Obi and Grievous.
When I said Obi-Wan and Maul, I actually meant Qui-Gon and Maul because I was thinking of the Phantom.
Or what if we get like we can't have a duel. I was thinking if we had Obi and Qui-Gon versus Maul, that'd have been kind of a sick starter, but like there's no way.
Didn't mean to sidetrack on set 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, like all these different sets, and you're just, hey, I've got all these different pre-con decks. So let's play some Star Wars. Grievous versus Vader, et cetera, and that could be one way that some people enjoy the game. I think that's kind of cool.
Actually, that's one way to kind of board gamify.
Yeah,
card game.
Yeah, definitely it feels more like a board game. There, you're just bringing in pre-cons that are just meant to play against each other.
And again, we've talked a little bit before how some people, they like to build thematic decks, cinematic decks. And that's okay. If that's how you want to play the game, do that. And these are going to be great ways to do that because the designers, as we see in this set, are showing us they want the theme to matter in these starter decks.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Well, really quickly, I'm going to steal Faith's job without even talking to him about it. We're almost at the end of the podcast, but I want to do one podcast question before we move on. And if you want your question answered on the next podcast, join our Discord and type in #podcast questions in the Discord, and you might get selected.
Wow.
So, right? I know. Today we have our friend Lore SWU, and they asked thoughts on leader viability down the line. Do you still think in 2 to 3 years we will see a set 1 leader in tournament play?
Yes.
So let's start off with Faith. Each of us gives one leader.
Krennic. Director Krennic. The boy.
Are you saying that because you're going to be playing it in 2 to 3 years in competitive play, or that you think it'll be meta?
Yeah, see, that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I'm going to basically say the same thing with Leia, and I'm going to be like, because I want to be playing with Leia in 2 to 3 years. I hope that we're in a spot where they are viable, because that means that there shouldn't be a lot of power creep. There shouldn't be like, there's a new rebel leader that's just clearly infinitely better than Leia, so why would you ever play Leia? So I think that's one of the reasons why we wouldn't see set 1 leaders in years 2 and 3 is because there's been some power creep action going on. But I personally, like, why in 2 years we've got 6 sets of rebels, why can't Leia still hammer out some aggro? Like, I don't see why not.
I think that we definitely will see set 1 leaders in that far advanced. The power creep is obviously the difference maker. I think FFG is clearly showing us that they are thinking long term. They're playtesting things out in advance, so that I think they're going to prevent that. But I believe playing Krennic because this is a unit based game. They've talked about that before. They want boots on the ground, damaging their units, damaging your units. Krennic makes your units bigger, and so building the deck around Krennic's ability, how I like to build my deck, is I think going to be a long term viable strategy.
So my answer for this is, and as me being the very competitive Spike person, I imagine everyone's like, Jrod's just going to say Boba Fett. Wrong. Correct aspect. Different leader. Han Solo.
Han Solo, my guy.
I'm just saying, never tell me the odds. You know what I mean? Because,
well, I think actually that is a good point, though. I think like things like Luke and Vader are also going to be interesting because they're going to scale as, like with Han, they're going to scale.
Yeah, I mean, Han just benefits from more good cards coming out because repping out to good cards is a good thing to do. Getting good cards out faster is like
crazy. I honestly, dude, like, I'm gonna push back on that a little bit, but
okay.
I'm gonna let you go ahead though. You go ahead. Go ahead.
So yeah, I mean, getting good cards out faster is generally always better most of the time, and Han just does that and doesn't really care what the cards, if they're Rebels or Clones or whatever. It's like, oh, this is a good card. Oh, and it's coming out sooner. Oh, good. I'm gonna die faster. Nice, sick. Thanks, Han. So yeah, I mean, I just think that Han's ability is very strong. I think he's very good, and I think in 2 to 3 years we're gonna look back on Han and be like, wow, that guy was probably a little busted. If I'm being honest.
Okay.
It's always interesting how the evaluation changes as we get more cards, because right now we're evaluating these set 1 leaders based on set 1 cards. Maybe there will be like this huge card that's just like, oh, of course that's just gonna break Han or break any of these leaders. And yeah, we'll have to wait and see what comes in the future.
Wait, we already have one that broke Han. Record.
Yeah. Get Record.
I can't wait to play Record, dude. But anyways.
Well, thank you guys for listening. And as said, if you want your question asked and answered on the podcast, let us know in our Discord. Hit that thumbs up button if you don't want Jrod to ask any more questions. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on El Maneuver.
Cheers, y'all.